Casa Grande, actually in Pinal County, and they were missing. We found 5 days after, and this was reported by the Phoenix Police, and from that moment up until this point, we have worked directly with the Phoenix Police Department on this case, and we appreciate all their work, cooperation, their partnership to get us to this point today. What we did find and we recovered is a burnt out truck that these two victims traveled in, and this was burnt out and located south of the city of Maricopa in western Pinal County. We did not know where their persons were. They were missing. What we did find, it was in January of 2009, and this is just as I was came into office as sheriff, so it gives you a sense of how long ago this was, that we found the remains of one individual, John Doe. We did not know it was connected to this case or that these individuals, and you can see that here is a shallow grave that was found in a wash. We had a report of bones and a skull that were found in this area, and they were transported to the medical examiner's office in Pima County. And it wasn't until September of 2014, and this is what is becoming known as the septic tank, the bodies that were found. And we had reports, and this is in Colonial del Sol, which is an unincorporated part of Casa Grande, that the septic tank wasn't working properly, it wasn't draining properly, and so the septic tank company comes to see what's wrong and to drain the septic tank. And so they start draining the septic tank, as you can see right here. They're draining the septic tank, and all of a sudden this hose gets clogged. And you can see that it's clogged by a human skull that would not fit through the septic tank. And the workmen at that time said, my God, this is a human skull that we have here, and they stopped everything, called the sheriff's office. We responded out, and obviously this is a crime scene. Methodically, our detectives with the workers of the septic tank system went down into the actual septic tank to continue to drain and recover the bones that were visible to the eye, and measure at what point these bones were recovered. And so what happened, a painstaking process to actually drain the entire content of the septic truck into an area that we could recover any and all human remains and evidence. And they actually had to go through, let it dry, and then they actually had to cut through and look through and sift through every piece of the septic tank to find the human remains. High compliments go out to the medical examiner of Pima County. This doctor knew immediately when these remains in September of 2014 were recovered. He immediately knew, told our homicide detectives that, hey, I remember there's a case a few years back, and he looked through his files and said, this is connected to this case in 2009. And how he could tell, he goes, there is sharp force trauma that was used. And what was used is either an axe or a machete, literally to sever portions of these bodies and their heads in both of these cases. A gruesome, a brutal murder, thinking that they were going to dump these bodies. We do believe that these murders occurred in Pinal County. We clearly know that their bodies were dumped. Some people are asking obvious questions, well, how has it taken so long? There's a lot of cases that our limited staff deal with, and homicides and serious cases like this. Quite frankly, we did not have all of this information at that time. Back in 2008 and 2009, when the first body was recovered, there was no way for us to connect it. And I do want to say as well, before we get to questions, that we do have to preserve our ability to prosecute the case and convict any of the suspects that we're going to be looking for. We do want to name Fausto Negrete Olivas, who is 43 years of age, and a person of interest is Dionisio Negrete Olivas, his brother, who is 48, but we identify Fausto as the prime suspect. He was in custody at one point in Department of Corrections, and he was released in 2013 and was subsequently deported. The second body wasn't even recovered at this point, and we could not connect any of this. I will tell you that he was interviewed. He did say he was aware, he believed that these two victims were kidnapped, but he disavowed any connection to the case whatsoever. And with that, I'll be happy to take any of your questions.
When you said he was interviewed, do you mean since the investigation or at the time of his arrest in 2013?
No, he was interviewed in what's called a free talk, meaning that he could share information with investigators. And he did say, this is prior to his release in 2013. He did tell us at the time, investigators, that he believed that they were kidnapped here in Pinal County, but he didn't have other information. He certainly disavowed any connection to the kidnapping. He didn't give us other information that they were brutally murdered or their bodies dumped in order to dispose, in order to cover their tracks. We do believe both him and his brother are in Mexico. We do know that at least the prime suspect has been to Nogales, Arizona, and we ask for the public's help in identifying not only where exactly the location, but we want them to speak with us. We want to interview them. Clearly, that if this isn't accurate, we need them to clear their names, right? But based on the information that we have and our investigation, over years now, with the advances with DNA and technology, that we're able to identify not just the bodies. Our condolences to the families. We've been working with them over time, and they're fully aware of where we're at in this case.
Would you be able to clarify Dinesios? You said, because you didn't call him a suspect, right? You said a person of
person of interest.
So what is this? What's the interest in him? What's his connection? What does he? What might he know? I guess I should say.
We do know that his phone was at a certain place at a certain time, and usually the person goes with the phone. So we've pieced together so many pieces of evidence in this case to get to this point that where we're at. Yet I can't share additional information at this time, just because we do have to prosecute this case. We want to talk with him. We want to interview him and to find out more information.
So this is some kind of violence between drug people. I mean, the two suspects
Yes.
are known illicit drug people, and the other two are also involved in some kind of drug cartel.
We do, and let me clarify, we do know that the main suspect here, Fastos, was convicted already for drug trafficking here in Arizona, that we do know he's involved in cartel activities. But when it comes to the two victims, we do not know that, except for one of them. There was the two, Baltazar Lopez, we do believe was involved in criminal syndicate activity, drug cartel activity. And the Azarin Cardova, we do not have any information that leads us to believe that. We do know he was only in Arizona for 2 weeks. And from our understanding, they may have some type of a short-term relationship, and they were coming down to Casa Grande. Baltazar believed he was owed an amount of money over $10,000, and he was coming to Casa Grande, and they told him that they're going to pay him that money at that time. So this was the lure down to Pinal County, to Casa Grande, was we're going to pay you that money, and this is where they had planned the whole time to murder him, and somebody else was with him. So unbeknownst to Baltazar and his guest that was driving in this truck with him, they both walked into this, what was planned to be a murder and execution.
When you say they told him they would pay him, do you mean Fausto?
Yeah, we do believe Fausto was the prime suspect that was involved here to lure them to Pinell County. And so others may have been involved in this in terms of not just the plan, but in the murder and dismemberment of the bodies and then the disposal. We do believe the murders occurred in Casa Grande, and as you can see, one of the bodies was dumped almost 20 miles away. So it was very hard if we have a body that's been decomposed, we didn't have any identification, we didn't have the technology at that time. And keep in mind, and this is where people think that this is a television show, that we do a DNA test and all of a sudden we know who it is. There has to be a coding that occurs, and we have to have that person's DNA already, or their families, in the bank for us to have a match. So essentially we have a fingerprint, but there's no fingerprint in the system. And so that's where we're operating from. And it's far more difficult in law enforcement in real life than it is on TV in a half-an-hour show.
When was the last time these guys were seen down in Nogales?
My understanding is within the past 12 months. That we do know that they were in the state of Arizona.
Oh, no, this side of the border.
Correct.
Okay.
Are you working with any officials in Mexico and Nogales in regards to this investigation?
We have reached out to other authorities here in the United States, and those authorities at the federal level, they would make those connections outside of the United States. But we do know that these individuals have crossed back into Arizona, and we do know that they have relationships with other people here. So,
Do you worry that people will care less because they might have a perception that this is drug-on-drug crime, that these are all bad guys who got into a fight over money and drugs and the so-called victims? Do you worry that that's the perception and people won't care as much?
I don't, in the fact that this is a brutal murder. Anytime, criminals get killed when they're involved in crime, but at the same time, this is our state of Arizona. This is Pinell County. This happened in the very city that I live in Casa Grande. I have a problem with the fact that people think that they can not only commit any crime, but actually commit murder, and then to use sharp force trauma to dismember the bodies, including decapitation of their heads, in my county. And then they think they're going to dump the bodies and dispose of them in a septic tank and not answer for it. These are some of the most gruesome murders that we've seen here. Now, yes, some of these types of incidents may be commonplace with cartels, but it brings it home for us, as you've seen throughout the years, that this is real, and this has happened right here, and these people are going to be held to account, and there's victims, and we know one wasn't involved, to our understanding, to any degree, with criminal activity, and walks in, he's in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong person. And so that's as far as we think that his guilt is a part of this. So pardon me? Yeah, right, and who speaks for their families, and that's part of our job in law enforcement, is justice, not only for the criminals, but for the families. And they're very not only concerned, they live here, and they're from here, and they want justice for these murders and how gruesome they were. Thank you. Good question.
Would you mind sharing kind of your mindset, of your mindset, and perhaps that of your team, because you're going against a very, how can I say, notoriously violent type of criminal. The drug cartels are no stranger to really gruesome ways. And so when you're looking at charging and prosecuting things like that, does that concern you, or any for the safety of any of your deputies, for example?
It's always a concern for us in law enforcement that these occur. We've had in the past, just in my time as sheriff, Steve Henry and I have brought a heavy hand of enforcement against, namely, the Sinaloa cartel. We've had also in Casa Grande, there was a hit of a criminal informant. If you remember back years ago, we had somebody who was shot 6 or 8 times while driving his vehicle in Casa Grande. And he was killed, as his wife reported to our detectives, because the cartel believed he was a snitch. He was giving information on them to the sheriff. And we disclosed publicly that yes, in fact, that was true, that he was working for us. He was a criminal informant. And some people criticized us for sharing that information, but we wanted to underscore the severity of this issue. While most of us live very peaceful lives and worry about the normal day-to-day of our jobs, of our families, of bills, you see something like this that has occurred. You know, this is literally 30 miles outside of Metro Phoenix, right? That you have a cartel hit. You have cartel scouts on mountaintops right outside of Casa Grande. We've arrested now 21 in the past couple of years, and they do think that they own this place. As much as this stuff may have gone on in Mexico to destabilize our good neighbor, Mexico, where these type of murders, these murders happen right here. And this is the evidence, the proof that that's the case. It's a concern of ours, but our job is we're the protectors. We do not walk in fear of these criminals, but our job is to protect our communities and to say this kind of vicious crime cannot go unanswered in the state of Arizona.
Have you been able to determine if the body was in the septic tank for that long, or if it was just put there maybe down the road? We
believe so. That when the murders happened, likely 5 days after the missing report was made in April of 2008, it was early May, that the vehicle was burnt. We recovered that. We believe that those bodies were both of the victims were murdered at that time in Casa Grande, dismembered, and then dumped separately. We do know of note, while that painstaking effort to go sift through the septic tank, other human remains were found outside of the main body. So an additional piece of evidence, a clue for us in law enforcement that there was a linkage with these two bodies. That hasn't been proven that it's the original body that was found in the wash. So that hasn't been confirmed. We did find other human remains in the septic tank outside of the main corpse. So it has not been linked. Yet it leads us to believe, because there were certain digits that were missing from the body in the desert that were found in the septic tank. We also did find a gold tooth in the septic tank, and one of the victims here identified did have a gold tooth as well. So there was a lot of evidence. Again, appreciating the medical examiners of Pima County who did this painstaking work of identification. Do want to shout out to our captain, Tammy Villar, who has led this investigation with our detectives in homicide. They've had a number of high-profile cases, as you know. We've had 2 now double homicides in this past year that are right here in Pinal County that have occurred. This is a cold case, and oftentimes people think that we just forget about these cases and they're on the back burner, while we have so many cases right in front of us that we do have to focus on. While the information or suspects are real or we're hot on these cases, we never let these down. And we never give up. And this is a credit to the professionalism of those that serve in these positions in law enforcement, that they do a great job. And they're heroes. They're as important as a deputy in a uniform on the street protecting our families as these people who go after justice with a passion as they do. Great.
Any idea who was found in the desert, who was found in the septic tank?
We're not going to share that information at this point. Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you so much for coming today and helping us get this information out to the public.
Ray, you want to take a look at these?
Thank you, Sheriff.
Yes.
You got it.
That'd be great.
Are you emailing those pictures of the septic
Absolutely.
tank and all that?
You got it.
I'll send digital versions of everything to the desks here in the next hour. Are you okay with that?
That's when they thought they